Do you like my top? I look like a flag, don't I? I'm a flag. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Samad. Today I would like to share with you my top 5 things that you must do if you are in Porto, Portugal. I visited Portugal last year and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was there for a few weeks. I did as much as I could to explore Porto to its finest, and that city is just really close in my heart. Like, I love it so much. Before we get started, please give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. It really does help me make better content for everyone, and I'm really enjoying making this type of content, so just show the love, man, show the love. Anyway, let's get started. Subscribe! So the first thing that I really want to recommend to you is to learn how to paint tiles. The city is littered with like beautiful architecture and beautiful hand-painted tiles, and these hand-painted tiles, they have a lot of rich and artistic history.
Unfortunately, in Porto, there are no tile museums. There's only a tile museum in Lisbon, but in Porto, for some reason, there isn't, even though a majority of the hand-painted tiles from centuries ago are in Porto itself.
I would highly recommend that you look up this 2-woman organization called Gazete Azulejos.
I'm sorry if I am butchering the name because I am not Portuguese, as you can see.
And it's ran by these 2 amazingly passionate women, and they are fighting to preserve the legacy of Portuguese tiles. So when we were in Porto, we found their workshop in Airbnb, but you can actually just go to their website and book a lesson on how to paint Portuguese tiles. During their workshop, you learn about the history of Portuguese tiles, where they originated from, and also how painted tiles are actually made. After you learn all of the basic know-hows of the history and what the tiles are all about, you can paint your own tiles. And the ladies from this organization will, of course, share their knowledge with you and guide you through the whole process. They have stencils that you can follow, and these stencils are usually designs that can be found all around Porto, either on buildings that are still existing or buildings that have been demolished.
Now, I didn't have that much confidence with designing my own tiles. I wanted it to be really beautiful, so instead of going mental and painting freehand, I instead decided to go with a stencil.
And the stencil that I chose was from a building that was actually like 2 minutes away from their studio, and I absolutely love the design. It is so beautiful, it is so authentic and clean as well, and I'm very proud that I actually did the stencil really well. There are no blotchy lines or anything, so I'm give myself a pat on the back. I really loved this experience so much because
I did architecture for my degree, and I just loved learning about the cultural significance of like certain details of buildings, especially if they're historically impactful towards a country's culture, you know? This whole workshop and this whole experience was wonderful to me, and I got to take back home a piece of Portugal that is just so unique.
Okay, the second thing that I'd like to recommend is, of course, port wine cellars. Porto is obviously known for what? Port wine, duh. I love port wine. That is my desired choice for a bevy, and when we were in Porto, I was like,
obviously we have to go for a wine cellar tour.
We went to 2 tours. The first one was a more commercial, large company, and it's called Sanderman. And if I'm not mistaken, the founder of Sanderman is actually a Scottish guy. That's really strange. But if you're used to like really commercial tours like Guinness or whatever, Sanderman is actually pretty good because I guess it's got like a bit of a high budget. Our tour guide was dressed as Zorro, which was pretty funny. The cellars were massive, and we got to see like the vintage wine collection. We got to see the giant barrels that they had, and they also had like an indoor theater. And of course, at the end of the tour, you get to taste wine, and we got 3 wine tastings. It was like white, ruby, and I think a vintage. It was great. However, if you want a more humble experience when it comes to wine cellar tours, Sanderman is really great. I really liked it, but I much preferred Agosto.
Me and Fraser came back home with like 5 bottles of Agosto port wine. It was really good.
The tickets were only €5, and the wine cellar itself, I think they're much younger than Sanderman. So the wine cellar itself was a lot smaller in terms of space and everything, but I really liked it because the tour guide was super friendly, more personable. You could ask him a lot of questions and he would basically treat you like a friend, which is great. When we tasted the wines, we just really enjoyed it. Like, I loved it. It was my favorite port wine that I tried while we were there, and we drank a lot of port wine, by the way. The whole experience was just great, and it was only €5. I think part of it is because that the ticket was really cheap, so I just really liked that experience a lot. Definitely recommend that you do a wine cellar tour. Honestly, it can be anyone's, but these two are the ones that I went to and I really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend them. The third thing that I would like to recommend to you, marvel in the wealth of Church of São Francisco. I am not a big fan of religion, especially when it involves wealth
and the ultimate exploitation of poor people.
However, I do really enjoy the architectural accomplishments of human beings throughout mankind.
It never ceased to amaze me that these religious buildings are so spectacular and so grandiose.
This Baroque church in Porto is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The interior is mostly made of timber and it is coated in gold leaf, and they used white egg to paint the gold leaf on. It's extraordinary, honestly. I mean, the whole point during that time in the 15th century is
It's like big dick energy, right?
you have to show off who's the richest, and I'm pretty sure this church did a good job in showing off that they're very wealthy.
However, the gold was stolen from Brazil and it was a way of showing off wealth in terms of colonialism, but
Let's just ignore that and marvel in the beauty of what this church is right now. Definitely check out this church. I hate that you have to pay to get in because you are supporting the church. It's a love and hate situation for me. Like, I fucking love architecture and I love Baroque architecture, but I just hate it that I have to pay to see it. It's a place of worship. It should be free for everyone, right? But this is the world that we live in. Okay, next, the fourth thing that I would like to recommend for everyone to visit local food markets. While we were there, we ate very luxuriously. Like, the portion sizes in Porto was unbelievable. And
a lot of the locals say that you can go anywhere in Porto and you will most likely find really delicious food, and I will vouch for that because everywhere we went, we ate like kings and queens.
I would like to highlight two markets. The first market is the food market in Gaia, which is the strip where Sandaman is and all the port wine cellars are. There is a food market there that serves a lot of local food, wines and stuff like that. And while we were there, we had like seafood, like squid and everything. And we also had typical local green bean soup. And also we had fried beans. Here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that tempura was actually because of the influence of the Portuguese?
When you go to Porto or anywhere in Portugal, there's bound to be a person selling like homemade fried beans, and it's fried beans covered in batter. It's a light fry, kind of like tempura, and it's bloody delicious. And we found out while we were there, this is what inspired tempura.
And I was just like,
it's amazing what you learn at food markets. This is why I'm telling you to go to local food markets wherever you travel to. The second market we went to is called Mercado Temporário Bolao, and that's actually a temporary market to house local food merchants from the building that they're actually conserving, which is actually the main food market. It's going through some sort of conservation process, and obviously it's unsafe to house people there, so they made a temporary one. But the temporary one was great too because all of these older local food merchants are housed there and they're selling their fruits, veggies, fish and all this stuff. And you can also find Portugal's national dish, which is a dried salted codfish. Yes, codfish is not from Portugal, but the whole process of salting it and drying it is actually a Portuguese thing.
Back in the day, they had to find ways to preserve codfish for people who were sailing overseas and fighting wars and all that stuff. So
it's really fascinating. Like, I would definitely recommend you go and visit it. I would love to go to the original market once the conservation project is completed, but for now, if you're going to Porto this year, next year, in the following years, go to the temporary one because it is really well done and the people are just fascinating to witness and experience. Like, the last thing that I would like to talk about is when you go to Porto or when you're in Portugal, please experience the art of Fado. Fado is actually a music genre, and it is usually like a typical Portuguese way of perfectly performing music in a very melancholy way. While we were in Porto, we were actually really lucky to experience a fado by a local neighborhood community that just started performing in front of the castle or church on top of a hill in Porto. The whole neighborhood just came out dancing, singing. The neighborhood auntie was like selling €1 sangrias, which was perfect because it was so sunny and warm that day. Bystanders were just kind of surrounding the area and just watching everyone have fun, everyone dancing. And that's kind of what I believe Fado is. You are performing your music, you are singing your song, but you are expressing the emotion so accurately that everyone understands what you are trying to convey. Does that make sense? When you witness it yourself and you see everyone just feeling it, vibing, dancing, singing along, that's what it is. There was a sense of community when you actually experience it with locals. Like, it was wonderful. I really loved it. I just loved kind of sitting there sipping my sangria, you know. It was a really memorable experience for me. Bonus shout out, instead of buying souvenirs made from China and then imported back into Portugal, please, why don't you support their local designers and makers? So here are 3 businesses that are in Porto right now that you can support. The first one is called Mudcycle, and they do leather products like bags and stuff with cork. Portugal is one of the main exporters of cork, so they're using local materials to make leather goods. And I bought a leather bag from them and I think it's gorgeous, it's really affordable, and it's all handmade in Porto by Mudcycle, so definitely check them out. The second one is called Inguz. They are also a business that produces leather goods, mostly shoes. When I was in Porto, I stumbled upon a market and I really wanted to buy something that was local, so I found Inguz and I found these slip-on shoes. These ones, which I wear till today. I fucking love them. Imagine Birkenstocks, but they're stylish and they're handmade by this talented Portuguese maker. Yeah, check them out. And the last one is called Nuuk Jewellery, and it is a jewelry business that makes really affordable jewelry, and I've got some of their jewelry on today. All handmade, gold-plated, and just made by a local Portuguese jeweler. This would make a much better souvenir or a much better gift than buying that magnet that was made in China, okay? Pay a little bit more to support the local businesses and then you will get something unique from Portugal. Anyway guys, that's all of my top 5 recommendations plus bonuses of all the things that you should do in Porto. I hope you found this really helpful. I will drop all of the relevant information in the description box below. If you liked this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I've got tons of useful information and content ready to be filmed for everyone who wants to travel the world. Definitely subscribe to my channel if you like content like that. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Bye!